Why is employee experience so important as a focus area?
Well, I think yeah, that's a really broad question and an important one. But I think so often, at least through my lens, the way I think of experience is that experience is important a couple of ways. It's important because experience is ultimately what attracts and retains an employee, right? It's the day to day, the moments, the interactions we have that engage us to our work. And so the experience is where it all begins. And the reason experience is so important is that experience is something that we can create, that we can shape as organizations, as leaders. And that's what I am most excited about when we have conversations about employee experience. And I'm excited that employee experience has become a bigger topic over the last couple of years, because for the last 30 years or so, we've been talking about employee engagement. And employee engagement is really important, and we have ways to measure it, and we talk about it a lot. But engagement is an outcome. It's kind of like measuring profit, in terms of financial outcomes in an organization. Profit is an outcome measure. And knowing how much profit you have or knowing that you care about profit doesn't necessarily help you get more of it. And that's why I think experience is really powerful, because experience is the sort of represents what we can do, what we can create in order to generate more engagement. To get the thing that we want, we need to generate a better experience. And so I'm really optimistic about the work that's being done around experience. I'm really optimistic about the progress and the conversations that are happening around employee experience, because it helps, I think, guide us to a more actionable future in terms of it helps us as leaders, as organizations, understand what we should be doing, or where maybe our levers are, what we should, where we should focus. And so that's why I think it's a really important conversation to be having right now. Well, and I think it's something that people can relate to. They understand experience. We have experiences with our friends and our families. We have experiences in our personal life. We know what experience, on some level at least, we relate to experience. And so it becomes a much more tangible, real conversation when we're talking about, what is your experience at work like? People can talk about that, and they understand that, and that becomes a lot more meaningful and tangible, I think, for the employee and the manager to have a conversation. It's weird or abstract to say, well, what can I do to engage you more? A lot of times, if you're my employee, it's hard to even answer that question. I'm not sure what that means exactly. But if you say, what could we do so that you would have a better experience at work every day? That becomes something that we can actually have a real productive conversation about, that we can then take some action about. So that's why it's definitely a good conversation to have.
And how do you think experience will change after the crisis? How relevant will it be?
Well, I think, experience, I don't know if it will, I don't think the importance of it will necessarily change or diminish at all. If anything, it'll be just as important. We're all still having experiences of work. We're all still having a day, whether it's, instead of having an experience sitting in person, we're having an experience sitting and having a conversation like this over video. So it's still an experience that's being created, an experience that's being had by the employees and the managers and leaders and everybody else. I think what changes probably is that we're going to have a memory of, I think the thing to be really thoughtful about right now is, what kind of experience are you creating? How are you treating people? How are you showing up for people as organizations, as leaders in this time right now, when as an employee, I have all sorts of needs and challenges and fears that I didn't have before. In this moment of time, what kind of experience are you creating for me? How are you supporting me through this experience? I think that'll have a lingering impact, and it will certainly have an effect on emerging from this. We have more trust or less trust? Do we have more cooperation or less cooperation, or loyalty? So I think that's how it'll shift. I think this is going to have a lasting impact over time.
Where do you think an organization starts in order to build stronger employee engagement and commitment to the organization's values?
So there's a lot of different places. I guess it depends on where you are, but what I would say in general is my experience is that most organizations, when they're committing to, they want greater engagement or they want to build a better culture, the first thing that has to be done is you have to get really clear about what those things mean. So I see so many organizations that will say, well, we're building we're investing in our culture, or we want to improve engagement. But if I say, okay, well, what does that mean? What does employee engagement mean at your organization? And you'll get something very broad or very generic, like, well, we want people to be working harder and working better and sticking around or whatever it is, but they don't specifically define what engagement means here or what our culture is. Like, what is our culture? Like, we're building a better culture, but what exactly is it? Define it for me. And so that work is really hard. The reason most organizations skip over it is it's hard to articulate those things because you have to make choices. You have to commit those choices to words, and then you have to share those with people. And then there's a natural accountability in that. So if I say that our culture is about, integrity and taking care of people, and I put that down in writing and I share that with all of our employees, then our employees are going to expect to feel like they're being taken care of. And so it creates this sort of expectation or this accountability in that commitment. And so it's hard work. It really forces you to get really disciplined about those things. And so I think that's why a lot of times organizations want to skip over it, right? We're busy. We got a lot of other things going on. So we'll jump past the definition, the hard work of articulating our intentions, and try to go straight to action. And in which case you may end up getting lucky and improving engagement or ending up with a decent culture, but it may not be the one that you intended in the first place. It may end up being okay, but it may not be exactly what you wanted. And so I think the first step is really getting clear on definition.
And what are some of the focus areas that organizations need to focus on to create a differentiated experience?
Well, I think it starts with definition, understanding what it is we're intending to create. So there's, as an organization, like, what kind of employer are we going to be? How are we going to treat people? What kind of work environment or experience are we intending to create, and committing to that? Writing that down in a way that people can respond to. So you have new employees, you can share that with them. You can share that with leaders on, here's how you should be creating experience or showing up in your conversations with people. But I also think then the next step is really, this is a design question that you're asking. And I think in HR often we haven't really invested in design in the way that I think we need to, and understanding that experience it will just happen if we don't do anything, but we can actually very intentionally design it. And one of the first steps of design is really to understand your audience. It's understand who you are designing for, what their needs are, what their challenges are, what their interests and dreams and aspirations are. And so if I have a clarity of intention about, what kind of organization I want to create, the next step then, if I want to really differentiate and make it work, is I got to go get to know my people. I have to really understand who my people are, who are the people that I want to attract. What do they need? What do they care about? What are they looking for in a work experience? And then I can start having some conversations about the kinds of things we actually do. What kinds of workplaces, what kinds of work experiences? Do we even need a workplace? What kind of technology? What kind of training and development? What kind of leadership philosophy? All of those things can come out of that. But you have to be clear about what are you trying to accomplish, and then who are you needing to accomplish it with or wanting to accomplish it with. Then you can start putting the pieces together, right? You can make informed decisions about that. But that's where it starts if you want to really make a unique and differentiated experience.
So do you have any last thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think just that I am, as we travel through this crisis right now, as we navigate through this massive disruption, the thing that I am thinking about more and more is that we are at the precipice, I think, of of an opportunity to make enormous positive changes in how work happens and how work gets done. We talked for the last, I love talking about the future of work. I study future of work. I write about future of work a fair amount, but like we're at a moment in time where leaders and HR professionals have an opportunity to really have an impact in changing the trajectory of what work looks like for the next decade. And that moment's right now, because the rules have changed, the defenses are down, we've been disrupted, leaders' minds are completely open to new ways of doing things, and now is our opportunity to step in and find those ways, to introduce new things, to be trying new things, and to make them work now so that when we come out of this, that we've got a whole set of new possibilities and practices in place. So I hope that people will be bold and take chances and experiment right now, because we will never have an opportunity, or at least we won't have another opportunity like this in the near future. So I hope we all take advantage of it.